Os, and welcome to my thoughts and ideas. Today I'd like to cover two things. Number one, the concept of there is no opponent. Number two, instead of calling it work, realize it's play. So going to number one, there is no opponent. So often we see fighters get fixated on their opponent. Their opponent becomes everything that they think about. Every waking day they're thinking about their opponent. But this is dangerous. Because the opponent can use this as leverage. The opponent can distract you as a strategy. The more you think about your opponent, the less you think about what matters the most, knowing thy own self. You give all your power and all your energy away to something that does not need it. Your enemy, your opponent, does not need this energy. You need this energy. To focus on you, to become a better version of yourself each day. Instead of looking at it as a sport, look at it as a craftsman. Look at your martial arts practice as you working on a craft, because that's what it is. Every day you work on getting your kicks faster and more powerful. You're working on your punching techniques. You're working on many different ways of using the elbows and the knees. Finding ways in and out of the clinch. There's so many crafts, especially in mixed martial arts, that you must work on and practice diligently. So instead of going into it with a sportsman mentality, go into it with a craftsman mentality. It is not you versus somebody else, us versus them. This is an opportunity for you to display all that you worked hard for. And I use the word work because we're so familiar with it. But often it's again something else fighters always say. I am a workhorse. I work. It's because of my hard work. Work. Now this mentality can become exhausting. Because you're always looking at it like work. The same way a businessman in an office looks at work. Yeah, they look at it as something that inspires them to get better. But oftentimes people treat work like it's something that they really don't want to do. That's where play comes into the picture. Stop viewing it as work. And realize it's play. When you're working on your craft, you're playing. It becomes like a dance. It becomes something you enjoy. People look at you and say, man, he's really training hard for something. He really wants it. He's spending so many hours a day in the gym. He must really be working hard towards his goal. He must really be working. But then they look at you, and instead of having such a serious face like you dread being there, they look at you and you're smiling. You might be working very hard and look serious in the moment, but when it's all over, you laugh, you joke around, and you have a childlike humor about you. Because you enjoy what it is that you're doing. You're enjoying every little detail and every little movement that this game has to offer. You see, fighting is a tactical game, but a game that must be played seriously because the consequences are huge. So you play the game with skill, but you play the game, which means there has to be some level of enjoyment, some level of curiosity that makes you want to explore it each day. And the more you play with this curiosity, the more you as the individual will develop. Now, when it comes to the fight, the opponent is only going to react off of you in the moment. They can make game plans. They can strategize and plan what exactly they think you're going to do. But when the day comes and when the gate closes behind you and it's time to fight, everything changes. And everything should change. You shouldn't be predictable. You should take your opponent by surprise by being where they do not expect you to be. And that's the way of the craftsman. The craftsman sees the situation, analyzes the situation as it's playing out, and then reacts to it. Reacts to it with all the hours spent playing and drilling and perfecting the craft. So when you're working on it in this perspective, you're no longer focusing on your opponent. When you're in the press conference and your opponent's standing over there and he's shouting and he's saying all these things about you, you act as if the opponent is not even there. Every time they talk to you about anything, you talk about what you know. You. And you disregard the opponent completely. This will shatter the opponent's confidence because you're not making it about them anymore. But it's important to know and not to get this confused with underestimating your opponent. It's not that you underestimate your opponent. It's that the opponent is not your world. Your world is your world. You do not underestimate. In fact, you prepare. You prepare for the worst case scenario. But the preparation must be you developing. Each and every day, you strive for better development so that you can be that much more ahead of even your own self. And then, when it's time to fight, the fighter will fight a whole different way. It will be more in the moment. He will allow the way to guide him. His body will flow. His punches and kicks will connect. And he's not at all distracted by the obstacle. His only goal and mission is to move through the obstacle. There is no opponent. And there is no need to misinterpret work for play. Play like a child and work hard like a craftsman. And bring these two things in harmony. And you will see who shows up to the fight. Os.